welcome back to the Beyond Broadcast podcast, a show which takes a behind-the-scenes look at industry professionals and their lives working in the broadcasting and entertainment industry. Today, I'm speaking with radio host, voiceover artist, actor, and MC Estelle Clifford. Estelle Clifford is a seasoned broadcaster, voiceover artist, actor, and celebrant who first found her voice behind the mic around 2006. Since then, she's graced both national and local airwaves from the Hits Network to More FM, and she's been a finalist for Best New Broadcaster, co-hosted podcasts like Survivor Radio, and brought her voice to everything from weddings to Wiggles sing-alongs from what I've heard as well. Estelle, welcome to the show.
Kia ora, that was a real moment too, the Wiggles sing-along. Who knew I fangirled on the Wiggles iconic. So much? It was. It really was.
Was that like full circle for you as well in a sense? Because I think the Wiggles still would have been quite relevant even like around your 20s, maybe 30s. Like for me, I'm 32 now and I still consider the Wiggles quite iconic. Was that kind of like a weird moment for you seeing your own daughter obviously having this sort of like experience?
I never thought I would get emotional about the Wiggles. But it took me to a place where I was like, why am I feeling this feeling? But I think it is that full circle moment where, isn't it incredible that they have had such a journey through so many decades of people's lives? And you've either watched as a kid or then as a teenager, you're having to watch your cousins watch it or whatever. But it just carries on, doesn't it? And then here you are with your own kids. And then our girls were fizz. I was in the studio with Laura McGoldrick and her daughter as well. And then suddenly they changed the lyrics to their song to include our daughters' names. And that was it. Us mums were like, happy cries, happy cries. And the girls are singing along just like happy, but not quite as aware of what the moment was as we were, I think. It felt
it's kind of like when you go to see your favourite band and like you're with your
Yes.
partner and they don't really understand how good this band is. And you're like, you don't even get it. Like, this is amazing.
Yes, and that tingle you get on your skin. And then we did actually go to the Wiggles after that. So my daughter's first concert was the Wiggles. And again, I was astounded by how much I enjoyed the gig. One, I think seeing something through her eyes and that like, whoa, is me kind of thing. But also, they are just so good. They are so good at what they do. And a place that makes you feel happy and you want to sing along and there's been joy and craziness, like, come on, what's not to love about that? And I know they kind of get stick, like I think sometimes it's like the embarrassing thing that you're not supposed to say you actually like. But once you see them live, I think you like them even more. They're so clever. Can we just also park it though that my daughter, since Emma has left, not so much a fan.
Oh, mate, honestly, don't blame her. It's like when the Beatles broke up, everyone takes sides. You're either Paul or John, Yeah, fair enough.
Yep, she loved Emma. I mean, she loves all of them, but in particular, once Emma left, I think she just couldn't deal with too many more people. It was just that little tight team was all she needed, right? And I didn't realise that a 3-year-old could be so opinionated about what bands they loved, but there you go.
Oh, it's started something beautiful then, and I love it. And I think the thing I always loved about the Wiggles, especially now, is the fact that they've transcended the kindergarten and now it's like in the pub. I've heard that the reunion tour was something of like a bit of a balmy in terms of people were just going absolutely mental for it. So I'm incredibly envious of you.
Yeah, 90s nostalgia is amazing, isn't it? And a whole lot of adults wanting to sing along to these songs that they grew up with is just something else. And isn't it just so clever to tap in to another way to make yourselves relevant, but also maybe make some money? Like it's just
100%.
It's flipping clever. Like the people in that group and behind the scenes are just so smart. I've always actually thought that about Australians. They're very good at TV and they're very good at live theatre. I did once do a school tour with an Australian theatre group, like this whole show, and everything just had a new polish about it. But perhaps that's because they are better funded and have more money. That also helps, that you aren't scavenging around in op shops for your costumes. They just appear. People just make things happen for you. But yeah, it's probably a lot to do with money.
Oh, I feel like there's going to be a recurring thing probably throughout this chat, like the money and how it all moves and how like we kind of managed to make a lot of great things in New Zealand on very small budgets in a sense. And but moving away from that, I want to take a little bit of a look at your earlier life because we talked a little bit about it off air. You get judged now by your ex-folks from Wellington. And how you grew up in Wellington and now you can't really handle the wind and the cold as you used to. But you also had some pretty strong ties to Orewa. So you were obviously playing at the beach in summer Was it your grandparents' place that was in Ottawa? So
yeah.
Do you remember that time quite fondly? And like, how does that like kind of transition between you going from Wellington, this crazy, miserable kind of place for the most part, then going to Ottawa, which is absolutely beautiful?
Yeah, so my grandparents had actually they were Aucklanders, and then they had moved to Hamilton, and then they did what every grandparent does, and they moved to Tauranga. But in between that time, they had a caravan, and so they had it parked up in Orewa, Stanmore Bay, all around the Hibiscus coast. And I remember as a child just being packed in the car and thinking that it took like hours and hours and hours to drive there, and you'd get to the harbour bridge and you'd be like, wow, Auckland. And then it still felt like it drove for so long. And then you just turn up to this beautiful place where there's like these rolling grass into sand dunes, pristine golden sand beaches that are safe for kids. That's the thing I remember as a kid. I'd be up having my breakfast at like 7, and by 7:30 I'm like just itching. Please, can I jump over the sand dune? I need to get into the sand. I need to get into the sand. And often I'd just be with my grandparents, ditch the parents. Who cares what they're doing? Half the time they would like sort of join a couple of weeks later kind of thing, you know? And I just spent my whole day at the beach. This was also a time when there would be like a youth group or I don't really know who ran it, but at the reserve in Stanmore Bay, they used to have this amazing group of people who would just come and get all the kids like the Pied Piper, and sometimes would be put on a trailer at the back of a tractor and would be taken to the reserve, and we'd just do activities there all day and then sort of make your way meander back down the beach. And you know that childhood memory where it's like way down there, and then you move somewhere as an adult and you go, that's literally like a 3-minute walk. It's so close. The reserve is right there by where the camp used to be. It's so bizarre, but beautiful memories. And sometimes even now that I live on the Hibiscus coast and I walk down to the beach, I still get that, you know, the warm air that's salty and sandy, and it hits your sinuses and you're just immediately taken back to crashing through waves as a child and baking yourself in the sun all day, building sandcastles. And it's such a wonderful memory to just take you back. I don't have memories of anything else. I don't know what the shops look like or anything like that. I know that sense and that smell and the being in the water, and how parents just were like, okay then, go and be at the beach all day. I mean, I'm sure there were adults with me, but I don't recall them. You know, like I was just really having such a great time. What a wonderful way to grow up. And then, yes, having to go back to Wellington life, but you defend Wellington when you live there. You don't care. You got all the gear. You've got the right jackets, the right boots. You're used to holding onto your car door until you're out and closed it again, so you don't lose it or smash into someone else. You don't notice that you're walking on a lean into the wind. You have all the hats and the gloves. You have the gear, right, to survive that place. And you drink mulled wine and you sit in wonderful cafes and food places that are warm. So.
Well, that's the thing, because I will always, there's a good balance of everything, and I will always say that Wellington is actually my favourite city in New Zealand. I'm from Christchurch myself, but I still rate Wellington as being the best city. Yeah, weather-wise, no, but culturally, it's probably one of the meccas of New Zealand for like film, television, everything else in between. Yep. And I guess in a sense, is that where that kind of love initially came from, was Wellington, because it's the birthplace of a lot of really good established radio stations like Radioactive. How did you end up, like, what was that kind of changing point for you that got you into radio?
So theatre was my absolute passion and love right through school. And then I went to performing arts for 3 years. And then I started doing shows in Wellington. So I did lots at BATS, and I worked for all the children's theatres. I did corporate theatre as well, because you've got to also find the place that gives you some bigger slides, some bigger money. And that's what I think is why Wellington is so amazing, because everyone comes into the hub. It's very easy to get into the city and be in the middle of Wellington, no matter which part of the outskirts you live in. So people come to things. I don't know what that's like now, but definitely when I was there, you came in, cheap eats, go to a theatre show, everyone came. And I think that's what makes that cultural thing really cool there. There's a hype and there's a vibe. Bands can survive there. And radio stations like Radioactive and stuff. On the sideline when I was at high school, I used to do one of those like radio stations at school where you had to take in everything, all your CDs and stuff, and plug it all in, and then over these horrible loud hailer things in the courtyards, you would broadcast out to those real basic stuff, but they just let us do it. High school was like, just go for it, see what happens. So I think had a passion a little bit for radio, clearly had a passion for talking. But yeah, theatre and acting was really going to be my thing. And then you kind of get to a bit where you're like, hey, maybe I should try my hand at something else. And an audition came up for a program called Upload. So it was going to be a New Zealand On Air funded youth radio program. One of the hosts was already confirmed as Barnaby Ware from the Black Seeds. And of course, they were already grooving and doing their thing around the Wellington scene. And I remember looking, going like, oh my God, kind of fangirling a little bit. Like, what? And so I went to this, Base 2 was where it was recorded. They're kind of like a multimedia sort of studio in Wellington. And yeah, just did like kind of this basic voice audition, and then before I knew it, it was mine. Like, yep, sweet as, you're a great mix with Barnaby, and I'm in this like little recording booth standing next to Barnaby Ware going, and because, you know, like his dad's got this real history in theatre and radio and spoken word as well. So when you have already studied some of that kind of history, it's a bit like standing next to a god, right? Like a far out. This is so cool.
Were you daunted by that? Because it almost feels like you went into it almost not expecting to get it. Is that kind of how you felt? You're just like, I'll throw it to the wind and see what happens. But like, I'm not banking on this. Like, I'm not even sure if I'm going to get this. Was that kind of the feeling? And you're like, oh, like I've got this now. What do I do?
Yeah, surely there are a whole lot of other voices and talent in Wellington who are, or that Barnaby already knows, that are going to want to do this or be right for this. But I think probably by then I'd already done a lot of work on my voice, so I probably had the right tone for it and I had the right energy for it. And also just curious and a love for music. You know, like that's also another thing, and I guess that's what got me into theatre too, just that love and passion for music. I'd grown up on a real broad range. My parents and grandparents and all of their influences. It didn't really matter to me if it was the cool music. I just really enjoyed a lot of variations of that.
Is there any significant gigs from your early teen years that you can remember now? Because Wellington was the birthplace for a lot of like bands like Fat Freddy's Drop, like you said, the Black Seeds, among others, like a really big melting pot of bands. Was there any that stand out to you that you still remember to this day and being like, man, I was at like one of their first shows, or this was an incredible show in itself? Yeah,
you could sneak into everything in Wellington underage. So and we were sneaky like that, you know. I remember going to a Dave Dobbin, just this intimate gig. I think it was at the St James Theatre, somewhere like that. And it was the first stage that Beck Goronga had. He had her as an opener, and she was young and shy and could barely look at the audience, like just barely look at us. And we were so hyped. And I think there's a real respect when someone like Dave Dobbin says, this artist is going to open for me. Everyone goes, okay then. You know, like we really respect what he has done, and that he is such a passionate artist to then open the doors for so many more. So this shy Beck Goronga comes out, and you could almost, I think if she'd just turned around, it wouldn't have been surprising, you know, and not look at us. And she just started to strum and sing these beautiful songs. I imagine they were some of the songs, it's hard to recall now, from her first album. And oh my gosh, like what a beautiful, clear, crisp, cutting through vocalist, isn't she? Like just, it was so amazing 100%. To think now that I was watching this person who would then go on to have this huge album and singles and be actually a real dominant force, right, for female artists. So I'm, at the time you don't realise, right, but now in years gone by, and then when I eventually interviewed her, and then her sister, Boronga, and things like that, you're like, this is crazy. I remember you being so shy, thinking, how is this person going to survive in this industry? But she had cool people backing her, and just absolute talent. So that's cool. We used to sneak into heaps of Super Groove gigs.
Yes.
And yeah, Fat Freddy's did this incredible waterfront gig. I think it must have been part of one of the festivals. But basically, a couple of the guys were on the waterfront there in that lagoony kind of part, and the rest of them were rowing it in on a waka. And so saxophone and noise here, and then the rest of them just starting to play, you know, and that's a full band with some crazy instruments. just rowing in and starting to like just give us that hum and vibe of Fat Freddy's as this crowd is around this basin kind of space. And it's freezing and you're all huddled up together and then they waka in and then they do the rest of their gig. They all hop out of the boat and just do their gig there on the side of the lagoon wharf bit there. And that was astounding to me that they could technically make that work. But also how magic. And that's the Wellington attitude, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're just going to row in on a...
Yeah.
Then I'll row in a waka. People are going to come and watch this and then we're going to perform a show here outdoors, and it was spectacular. It was, I think, some really groundbreaking stuff, and from there, homegrown, kind of running that same sort of vibe, isn't it? Those are the founding kind of artists who are like, yeah, we can do this, we can make this work, and it was a really cool way to see them. But I mean, there always was something going on in Wellington that you could get yourself into. Actually, Dave Dobbin, when he released his Twist album, he released these intimate gig tickets with the album when you bought it, and they were black and white. And so one of us in our group of friends, very young, bought the album and we all pitched in, and then we just photocopied the black and white tickets. Sorry, Sir Dave. And we went in, and it was really small and intimate. We must have looked like babies, but they let us in. And we were just sitting next to Annie Crummer, and Dave Dobbin it was like hanging out in his lounge. It was so...
That's wild.
Like an absolute stalker of music. You hear this about people who are in radio. They stalk the radio stations. They stalked the content directors and the producers. But I started earlier with the actual artists themselves, and just in awe of what they can do and how it makes you feel. I think that's what music is. It's a real...
Do you feel like radio was your kind of bridge to getting closer to the musicians? Because I could probably speak to that myself, that when I started in radio, it's because I wanted to interview bands. That was my whole thing. I always thought, I'm going to be a guy that gets to hang out with people backstage and do interviews. And then the longer I did it, I was like, well, it is a good entry point to get into shows. But yeah, no, I'm not going to go down that route. But was that kind of your idea as well? Like you grew up listening to music, spinning records, or no, never even
Not
considered
really.
radio?
No, Upload kind of gave me that, because suddenly I was getting sent out to go and interview people at their gigs, like behind the scenes and stuff. But I'd never really thought about interviewing people. I just enjoyed listening and playing music and seeing those people. I don't think anything had prepared me for the fact you would be behind the scenes then having to ask those people their stories. And I think that I probably wasn't very good at it when I was doing Upload. I remember them coming back being like, that was way too long, you didn't ask very focused questions. And I'm like, well, I'm not a journo, man, I'm just a person who loves this stuff. But I think it was a first point of me going, oh, right, I could put a bit more thought into this. And it probably is the thing that then did make me think I could do this as a job. And I think after you've done theatre and lots of stuff where you're not quite sure where your next rent money's coming from, I was like, maybe radio could give me a full-time income. So I kind of approached it like that. I was in Wellington. There was a job that came up for More FM. I'd been doing Upload for about 3 years, maybe. I applied for the job. I think David Riddler was there then. And he said to me, really great honest feedback is what helps you go somewhere in a career, doesn't it? Or decide what to do. You've got the voice. I think you've got the personality, but you don't know any of the technology or how radio works. And that can be hard. And I guess didn't want to teach me on the fly. There were probably other people that were going to be better at stepping into that role. It was like a day, maybe the day show or something for More FM, I think. What gumption, just to apply for that without having any radio.
I love that. But I think that's great, because I think that's often the thing that is missing in a lot of people that do try to enter industry, is they have this whole identity crisis of being like, oh no, I can't possibly do this. But you have the confidence in yourself, which is brilliant, because I think that's like a thing that's lacking in a lot of people when they try to get into industry. They're like, I could never do this. No. I think that's great, because when did you actually start going to radio training school? Because that was in around 2006, right? So was that just after you kind of had this chat with David Riddler and he's like, yeah, you need to get the technicals down and then come back to me and we can sort something up here? Is that kind of how it went down?
Pretty much is the trajectory of what happened. I was like, okay,
that's wild.
Do I want to do 3 years at broadcasting school? I've already done 3 years at drama school. I've got a debt this high. I'm in Wellington. It would be kind of cool to do something here. And so I found the radio training school with the 6-month course that they do. So I applied for that and I got in, And then I just remember being that person who's like, I am here on a mission. I will sit at the front. I mean, this is the cool thing going back when you've already done some study, you've come out, you've lived some life, and you go back in, you're very focused. And I had something I wanted to achieve, right? Let's get this technical stuff sorted. Let's hone what my broadcasting skills are and what my voice might be and what I can make work here. And let's go. 6 months. Go on then. And it was like that, right? And I remember some of the younger kids and some of the people in my class. We had a really broad mix of age groups and people from different backgrounds. And I think, again, that's what makes radio amazing. But I remember being like, hey, you the geek of the class, when I sit up the front. And I'm like, I could not care less because I had got places to be. So I was very motivated. 6 months, mate. But when some of the class members are like 16, they don't understand that, eh?
Yeah, for them, that's like a long time. And they're like, yeah, why do you want to do this? How old were you, Estelle, when you ended up going to radio training school?
Early 20s.
So, yeah, that's 20s? Still like a gap then. Yeah, because
Yep. Yeah.
So, because that's often the thing I always thought about, because even though I didn't really have that much of a big gap in between me going to broadcasting school and me finishing high school, I think I ended up going to broadcasting school when I was in my 20s or early 20s. I still think those 2 years that I didn't go was probably the most valuable thing ever, because I think if I'd come straight out of high school, I would have been a completely different person. And it's almost like, as you said, you're more focused because you're really thinking, this is my goal, this is what I want. Whereas if you're just transitioning straight out of high school, or that's your first kind of dipping into a career, you kind of maybe don't really appreciate it as much, or maybe don't really consider what it is you actually want. You're kind of like, oh, I'll see what sticks and then take it from there. But you knew exactly what you wanted to get out of it.
How many people do you know who did a BA or something at uni?
Yeah.
Because they just felt like they had to go to uni next. Yeah, because, and I think that's great, because there's a generation of parents now who we're like saying to our kids, you don't have to go to, you've already been at school for 13 years. Like, maybe get some life. Life experience is going to focus you and make things hard for you, and all the stuff that actually then makes you go, oh yeah, okay. And you recognize that those fees are you understand the monetary value of something, and you understand, and you still might go into something that takes you there, but you go somewhere else, but your starting point will be different. You know what I mean? And the cost of things, I think, helps people with that too. Now, like, hopefully it's okay. Don't panic if your kids need to take a gap year or do something else. It actually is a really good place. I was very focused. I was also really busy by then, working in theatre and working for this corporate events company, doing murder mysteries and like pirate treasure hunts around the city and this crazy stuff. So by about midway, James was there and John O'Manx was there, like real people already working in the industry still. And so you had these people working it and talking it, and it was really cool. Jimmy Stewart was like just kind of on his way out, but this amazing voice person that you just, wow, it was so cool to hang out with him. And Debbie Baker was in charge at that time too. So really focused people, they had a lot of experience. But partway through and getting near the end of the term, I just had so many gigs, and I'm like, I've got to go do these gigs because this is my money. This is what pays me. And I don't know if I should really say this, but one of the tutors, who shall remain nameless, downloaded all the radio software onto my home computer so that I could do all my projects in my own time.
You were doing remote study before remote study existed.
Pretty much, because I was determined I was going to pass and do all the projects. I just needed more hours, and I couldn't necessarily do them between 9 and 3 because I had this corporate event or I was doing something else. And so they were very giving towards that. I think maybe that said a lot, that they saw something in me, and so that gave me the confidence to go, yep, and I will get this mahi done. I just need to do it a slightly different way. So I started editing at home. So that was awesome. Like you could, you had to hand in like a little documentary, and you had to do some like a fake shift and all those sorts of things. So I would go do my corporate gigs, know that I could eat and pay my rent, put petrol in the car, and then I'd come home and I loved it. I'm a sound geek. I've also worked as a Foley artist, and so that's putting sound effects into films and like me picking up my cup of tea, that noise going down, people's clothing, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think I'm quite a soundy geek. So it meant at home I could like really hone in a little bit, and really get down to the the nitty gritty of how you edit something and very particular.
Estelle,
Yeah.
did you sleep? Did you sleep at all? Because it just
Probably
sounds
not.
like
No,
you were
no.
full pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like there was no rest for the wicked, like
Nah,
you were
because
just
I
constantly
loved
on all
it.
fours.
Or doing things I loved, performing, and then this radio stuff that I was just falling more and more into. Like, I don't know if I was very good at, you had to run promos and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, cool, I'm here. I'm a good energy person for that stuff, right? But someone else can organise it, please. So I found my niche. I loved editing. I loved recording. I loved doing a show and developing that stuff. So yes, did most of my last part of radio school away from school and handed it all in. But yeah, and then did all this other stuff. I also was an aerobics instructor at the Kilburnie pool. So maybe that was it. I just had a really fit time in my life and just did all the things. All the stuff was in my car. You just live out of your car and just,
Is that kind of the thing? Did you feel like you had the benefit of not only having a bit of life experience to yourself, but you still were at a young enough age that you're like, well, if I'm going to burn the candle at both ends, may as well do it now, take as much in as I can, and then once I have, then make the decision that's best for me? Was that kind of like your mentality of being like, I got to try it all, and if it doesn't work, cool. If it does, sweet.
Yeah, and I don't think I was ever at the time in it going, oh, I'm burning the candle at both ends. You just do it. Your 20s is something different. You've just got the energy to do it. I had a really supportive, awesome partner who is now my husband, and he's a performer as well. And so he was already doing lots and lots and lots and lots, and he was really supportive in this radio journey for me. He knew I needed to geek out. He was really good. He's actually a really good sounding board for me to be like, have a listen to this, and just, what do you hear? And actually, he's done that right through my career, even with like my radio awards and things. I'd give it to him to listen to. He'd be like, oh, you could tweak that bit, you could tweak that bit. And so maybe that also helped, like having this good, solid ground base of someone who's your support network too.
But not only that, it seems like you take criticism and feedback like really well, which I think can sometimes be a detriment to some people who enter the industry who, I'm not saying are sensitive, but it can be quite confronting having someone give you feedback or someone give you criticism to try and hone you, make you a better broadcaster. Do you think that ability to kind of take that on board and kind of make it your own is something that really carried you through your career, is the fact that you do listen, but you don't take 100%. It personally?
Yeah, I think that's from being an actor. So you're being directed the whole way through rehearsal, and so you have to really change and scope and shape and take that on board and then still make it your own and then deliver it. Then you get reviews and you get audience participation and reaction. And so being a performer in that live kind of setting, you're always used to getting that kind of critique. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Sometimes it does. Sometimes your ego gets in the way. But I think it was a really good foundation to getting then into radio. Radio school went by in an absolute whirl, met some cool people, did some great stuff, got ducks of the class, and because that's what I wanted. I came home with 97% and I was like, what? Where's the other 3%? And my partner's like, what are you talking about? This is insane. No one gets 97%, Estelle. Why are you focusing on the 3? But because I've become quite self-critical and just really wanted to be the best of what I could be. And so I had to learn to let that shit go, because it's 3%, like, I don't know.
But you were hungry for it. You were super hungry for it.
Yeah. And then came the job applications, eh? So you get out of there and you're just I was still so energized by it. Really wanted to stay in Wellington. So I did apply for a few jobs, and there were promo jobs and driving the promo cars, like the Thunder trucks and all those sorts of things.
Cooking barbecues, the usual.
Yeah, never got those jobs. I really wanted to be on air. And so everyone preps you at radio school. Your first job will never be on air. It's never on air. And I'm like, I will show you. My first job will be on air. Like, that only gave me more drive to say, it will be. I will be on air. My first job will be on air. And it was. Which I'm so, I ended up, so you apply for lots of jobs and you're like, how do I stand out? At that time, radio is generally still running. Breakfast day and sometimes drive shows from local markets. Or you might have breakfast and days and drive might go somewhere else. But predominantly a lot of those big stations locally were all running their own thing, big sales teams. And then there were lots of regions that were still in that surveyed market, and there were the little ones that weren't, but they were still so connected to the big hub of what was happening that good grounding. I ended up doing, I was like, I've got to cut through here. There's so many people applying for these jobs, lots of people coming out of radio school, lots of jobs coming up. And I sent an application to the team in Northland. They were looking for a day host. And so I got my show reel and my CV, and I put it in a big box with a helium balloon, packaged it all down, and I sent it from Wellington to Northland. And I was like, all I want is for them to lift that box and the helium balloon go up and my CD come up. And it caused exactly the reaction that it was supposed to. Like I got traction with that. I don't know if I'd done something similar. There was another day job that was happening down in Timaru. Were they called Port FM then?
Yes, Port FM, and it still would have been, yeah. And even now it's still called Port.
But they were just transitioning into, absolutely. Again, use that theatre background, Like, what's going to stand me out here? Like, I know that once they listen to my stuff, that will help, but still so beginner in how I presented stuff. I was used to being a character on stage, and then suddenly you actually just have to be yourself, and you still kind of have an energy and a thing. Yeah, absolutely. Northland were like, okay, we're going to take a chance on you. I was like, amazing. Mariana Hawthorne was there, and she was incredible. She's an incredible broadcaster, and she was the general manager at the time. I think she probably saw some of herself in me, that drive. And so when I arrived, Flash and John Markby were breakfast, and they were doing really well. They'd been there a while. Lana Searle was there, and I think she'd been there for about 6 months before me, and she was on drive. And they slotted me into this daytime 10 to 3. And seriously, I had never... what were they? Oh, they were on Master Control.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to Next Gen until I went to the city. So it was kind of like a format I understood. But that actual thing where you're like, now they're just going to let me go on this show. What the heck am I doing? And we moved from Wellington. We moved our lives from Wellington to Northland. I'd really tried to stay local. I was doing that thing, feet in the sand, trying to be stubborn about staying. The reality is, for your first job in radio, there's no harm in moving. It will only ever add strings to the bow. Contacts, life experience. We get there, we move our lives to Northland. We've got a little RAV4 and a Bedford van, and we pack up the bunny and the cat, and all our little worldly belongings went up in a truck before us, and we stayed at Mariana's in-laws' batch out at Whangarei Heads.
Oh,
this is a Wellingtonian city girl who suddenly is driving out like windy roads. We've gone through Whangarei, and then you go out the other side. I mean, and it took like a couple of days to get out. We fully roadied and like slept in the van at Waiouru and things. Meanwhile, my husband's family are like following us on the map up the North Island, like where we're going. It was a real adventure for everybody. And the bunny had a great time thumping away in the back of the Bedford. But yeah, you're driving out there and you see all this, like these flames and things out on the coast. And you're like, what are you looking at? I didn't know that was an oil refinery. I was like, are they filming some more Lord of the Rings over there? Like, what is happening? Very remote and very secluded. I think we had. Did
you ever have a moment of being like, what have I done? Like, what am I doing here?
So many freaking moments. Jamie, seriously, we get there and then I start, and it's a real learning curve, and they're real on me, and they really want to shape me real fast. I mean, I think Lana and I just became sisters very quickly because we were in the same boat together, learning our craft, right? And really highly seasoned professionals. And then we had the once in 100-year floods. And that meant that Whangarei Heads was cut off. So my man's out there, because by this stage he's not decided what the heck he's going to do in Northland. We've just moved for me. And
bless him.
then you have to broadcast to an area, and Northland is huge. I think people don't realise what it covers. Although that right from one part right up to the top, and then all the outskirts, east and west. It's a big place to cover. We had great coverage on More FM there, but suddenly you're in civil defence mode. We had our local newsreader, which was great, Ryan Boswell, who now does TVNZ stuff, I think. He was finding his feet there. And do you know what? I think what helped me is that theatre background where you're like, well, it's now or never. We are in the moment. Come on in, Ryan. Let's talk about what's happening in our area. Like, it's just so, you're on the thrill of the buzz, right? And keeping people in the know and safe, and you'd get callers coming in being like, I'm in Mangatoroto, and I'm like, where? I had a map of Northland. So I'd be like, okay, yep, I know where you are. He's like, I am sitting on the top of my truck. The floodwaters are coming in. And you learnt to take phones live, and you learnt to do, so it was actually probably quite good that very quickly I just had to figure out radio is this entertainment and music and fun, but it also is a connection to people. And at times like that, it is a lifeline.
100%.
And it made me learn Northland really, really fast.
Yeah, because you're having to learn all these names that you'd never heard. Yeah.
And it made us be like, we can't live at the heads. We need to get in to town. So there was that bit going on as well. But, you know, I had some breakdowns, man, like some real, like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's scary. It's terrifying. I can't do it. My partner's like,
how long into your first role did you have that
like
moment?
Couple of weeks.
Yeah?
Couple of weeks. It was just like this. Like, you've got to turn the mic on and talk. And then afterwards, someone's going to critique you and say, well, that was shit. You're like, yep, okay. And you've got to listen to yourself and be tough. Yeah, and look, the PD we had, he was tough on us. He was really tough on us, and he was scary, and again, it bonded Lana and I for life. But he had our best interests at heart, and he wanted to win, and he wanted us to be good, and all those things where you're looking at the slightly father figure being like,
yeah, I was about to say that was an element of like, it took you so long to finally understand what he actually wanted to get out of you rather than thinking he was just battering you for no reason. But there was a point to it. Do you remember his name, the PD's name?
Jonesy. Yeah, Jonesy. We had a real love-hate relationship, but I like to think that him and Mariana and people like that are why I got tough about the industry, but I got good. It was a surveyed market. You needed to achieve and you needed to do it. And I think I had the right experience and the right energy, and eventually you learn to take those things, figure it out, have a cry with Lana on the deck about it, come back inside and be like, I'm going to prove you that I can do this. And that is how you have to take it. And that's what theatre did too, right? Like, you don't always love it, but also just the move. Like, the cafes there closed at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. I come from Wellington, cafe culture. Cafes are open till midnight or all night. Like it was hard to socially find where we were. But then you start relaxing into the job, and when it's your first job, you're working every single day. And then you're doing barbecues and pie here. And then you're doing fun runs through the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. And then you're hosting people on a winery tour in the middle of the Kaipara Harbour. Like, you eventually just go, this is astounding. Like, look where I am. Look what I'm doing. And we did this wonderful thing called the 7 Wonders of Northland. And so that was me learning Northland. And so listeners would say, you've got to go here, you've got to go here, you've got to go here. And we put the 7 places together. And then over a period of about, must have been a couple of weeks, I think, I went and experienced all those things. So I went out and we swam at Hole in the Rock. And we went to Tane Mahuta and like really embracing what that Northland culture was. And they just accepted me then, right? Because I want to know about this area, this place I'm calling home. And I think the saving grace for somewhere like that was that we were connected to the Bay of Islands and all these wonderful places. Eventually, my man ended up working as a creative writer there as well. But he tried all sorts of jobs. But, you know, he's a performer too. And so he tried working in shops. He was a postie for ages.
That. Yes.
Yeah. Like, just did heaps of crazy stuff. And he would come and finish off the show with me in the studio. And but eventually there was a writer role, and he'd never done writing. But he's a performer, theatre person, and
just came naturally, kind of thing.
Yeah, and he joined the team there, and they loved him, and it was amazing. And we had this really good year and a bit, I think, of us working in the same space, but having our separate creativities about it. And yeah, if you can work with your partner, you're very lucky, I think. But we had like-minded people, I think, kind of helps. It was real cool for him. He ended up doing a skill that he didn't go to radio school for. He just managed to. There are some jobs and sometimes, I suppose, right timing and right person where you can throw yourself into something and learn. And he just had to learn not to write a full script. This isn't theatre or film. This is a 30-second ad.
But it's interesting. You touched on one thing that I can definitely attest to as well, because I worked in local radio. I worked in Wanaka, which was like a 4 or 5 hour drive from where I've been. It's the first time I'd ever lived outside of Christchurch, and I had the same experience as you. And I think the thing that I always find interesting is it's almost like you have to earn your stripes with the audience by them realizing you're not just some weird out-of-towner who's just come to get a glitzy job. You're actually here to kind of understand the people there and understand the vibe and the culture and everything else like that. Do you feel like it took a lot longer for you to get that respect, or do you feel like it came quite quickly once people realised Estelle was here to stay, she wants to know what's going on?
One part of what helped, I think, was that John and Flash were very good at welcoming me in and being those people you could talk to. And they're probably a little bit guarded. There's always that thing that someone else wants your job. But I wasn't there for that, I really was there to hone my craft and learn, and I was happy to do the hard yards, and I said yes to everything. So I think quite quickly they smartly got me out. Do you know one of the first promos that I did with Lana was the Tinny tour? I come from a theatre background in Wellington, okay? So I'm like Tinny.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, Tinny. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
Northland's got a reputation, but I didn't realise it was this open. They meant like those little boats that just have the little motor on the back.
Oh, geez, I'm glad someone clarified that, because, I think it would have been the same thought as me.
I'm like, what? People are going to find us and get in to win a tinny. This is amazing. It wasn't that. It was it's a dinghy, a boat, a dinghy with a motor. Boating, dinghies, fishing. It's very big in Northland. So Lana and I had to go out and get people to enter to win this dinghy. And so they smartly put me out in front of people very quickly. And, the thing that I know that I'm good at is I love meeting people, and I'm friendly, and I don't have anyone else. I don't have any family here. I don't really have any friends. So I'm happy to talk to you and become your friend.
Be my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know how to put it on. Like, this is the moment. You got to perform right now, but also in a friendly, normal, kind of way. And people, when they realize you're interested in their area and what they do, they're so willing to share, aren't they? You're like, come on then, where's the best pie? And that's why people still do those kind of competitions, because people want to say that stuff. Nah, mate, you haven't been to the right dairy. They love sharing that kind of stuff. And I really was open to it. And heart on sleeve, I quickly learnt how to just be me, be real. And I think that's probably what has carried me on in the career. I'm quite happy to lean into, I'm not perfect. I do some things wrong, and that's okay. I laugh at myself. And I'm here to try and be positive and happy. I don't want to share all the down buzz stories, but I'll get you through those if I can. And I think that, I think they were very willing to let me in for lots of those reasons. But I think that the team played it smart, just getting us out in front of people very quickly. Before you knew it, you're hosting everything too, right? You've got to do your day show, then you've got to record ads, and then you've got to go and MC something, drop off the whoever won the workshop afternoon tea, and it's just this never-ending
it ticks
thing
up,
of things
it keeps
that you're
ticking
doing.
up. And then by the time that you end up socializing, it somehow becomes another work thing without it intentionally being it. And you're like, sweet, there's my content for the day, because I've talked to someone in the pub about this, and it's like, cool, that's my content for the tomorrow. I'm going to mention them on the radio, then they're probably going to ring in because it's small town, New Zealand. I think that's the really cool thing I always loved about local radio, is that it's such a closed circuit that, you are literally having that one-on-one conversation that everyone always talks about when they're talking about radio as a one-on-one conversation. It is, because that person is more likely listening.
The best thing I ever got told was, you're just talking to your friend.
Yeah.
Just picture them just there across from you, and just tell them the story. Just tell them the thing that you're talking about. It was a really good thing to be told quite quickly. And because you're not from the area, you do rely heavily on the community. You rely heavily on your workmates. And so it does your life, there's a very fine line between what's life and what's work. And I think that's okay for a period of time. I think that continues in radio, that fine line between what is life and what is work. And maybe that's also to say that some of us just really commit a lot of ourselves to something we're very passionate about. Yeah. But it's a great foundation. Oh my gosh, I will never, ever regret. It was hard, and I thought I wanted to get out of that place as quick as possible. But without that, I don't think I would have been as strong as I was. And you had to get through surveys and things like that. So just puts a really great intensity on what it is you're doing.
Because you had such an impressive run so early on, Estelle, because you went through to then 2009, you were a finalist for Best New Broadcaster, which would have been because you cut your own tape up, using those editing skills to put one forward.
You got it.
And then on top of that, Classic Hits, the Hits Network, National Nights, National Daytime. Like, it's also quick, Estelle. For a lot of other people, they have to start in local market for a long time before they can even make that jump. It seems like you just had this very quick rotation. Why do you think that is, that you managed to pivot through to like national radio straight after? Like, that's quite a quick step.
I think that when Lana and I first started, and I put us together because we really did hone that stuff together. But I think that we were at a time when radio was changing. The DJ jock was dying off. They wanted some people who could just be themselves. There's a glossy version of yourself, though, isn't there? But you know, like, we're happy to be there in our gumboots doing stuff, and we're happy to talk about that and our life experiences. And I think that's where radio was changing. They wanted some people. I think more women needed to be in radio, so that was probably quite helpful too. But it sounded different. There were some people that were still, and some people who are doing radio a long time, and they're amazing, but they still had that jock sound about them. And I think that real conversation where people are leaning in and they're like, geez, I could have a wine with her. You know, that's kind of what this new generation of radio announcers was starting to do. I was probably quite lucky that Dallas Gurney holidayed in Northland. He was the head of the radio network, and he had been listening, and I didn't know that. But like you said, being up for radio awards and things like that, so it sort of puts a little bit of a target, I suppose, on you and what you're doing, and people want to listen. And then a job just came up, and by then I'd been in Northland for a couple of years, and I was kind of like, I felt like there was more. I needed to do more. I wanted to get out of Northland. I'd had enough of living in Whangarei, and I'd missed the city. I really did. You know, like I thought I was going to get back to Wellington, actually. I was really starting to try and look for work back down there to get back to some of my people and some theatre. I was starting to really hanker that part of my personality. And my man and I were like, we'll never move to Auckland. We go there for gigs, but we'll never live there. We'll never live there. We'll never live
That's
there.
That's always
anyway,
the saying. Anyone outside of Auckland never wants to live in Auckland.
Never going to live in Auckland. And then a job came up to do like a regional cover kind of role with Classic Hits. So you would do a fill-in announcer for whoever was missing. So they wanted kind of like this buffer person, and you'd do weekend shifts, and then you'd fill in for whichever breakfast or day show was away. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring there. And some changes were coming through More FM. They were starting to do their first kind of, we might change this up and combine, save some money. We might combine a few things. And my role, they were looking at combining into, I was either going to be day show and assistant content director, or maybe do more promos. There probably is a part of me that should have maybe done the assistant director stuff and learned a bit more about that. I think it was real kudos to them to think that I could learn to be that kind of person, but my ego still wanted to be on air and be a front person. and I wanted to move. I wanted to move. Yeah. So I applied for this job, and I pulled a sickie, and I flew to Auckland for an interview. And then I had a really awesome chat, and it was really cool to go into one of those HQ spaces in Auckland City. And then I flew back, and they were like, okay, we'll let you know in a week. And I'm like, okay, it was all very quiet, because I felt a bit naughty that I maybe wanted to do something else. I think everyone always feels like that in any industry. But I think they must have sensed it was kind of time for me to move on. I think
it's also like, because that local market feeling, they always have the knowledge of, like, if you're young enough and there's still like a passing window of you being able to leave, they're always going to be thinking, when are they going to be handing in the CV, or when are they going to be handing over and asking for a reference? There was something I actually wanted to touch on as well, because you talked about how it was especially changing for women. And you've spoken openly before that there was a lot of biases in radio, especially related to the old giggling woman and all that sort of carry on. Do you feel like for you, a big reason why you wanted to keep on pursuing this career, getting bigger and bigger roles, was because you wanted to break down that barrier of what was the preconceived notion of like a jock girl or a jock woman being on air just to kind of laugh at the shit jokes and kind of just be there, but you wanted to be more of a presence? Is that kind of the reason that you wanted to push for it?
That's a really, really good thing to focus on, and you've really, you've really hit the nail on the head there. It really became evident to me that I did not want to be the giggle girl. I didn't want to be the giggle girl. So often, the man is the anchor, the male is the anchor, and he says a lot of the stuff, and the girl reacts, or she giggles, or there's two guys and there's this giggle girl and she reads the news. And I really did not want to be the giggle girl. And I figured out pretty early that knowledge is power. So the more I could do technically for myself, because a lot of women in radio at that stage didn't know how to panel a desk. They couldn't run the gear. They couldn't be a panel operator. They could be in and be entertaining and be talent, but they didn't know how to do the stuff. And so when that anchor host was away, you'd have to get someone else to push the buttons, or the whole team would have to be away and someone else fills in or whatever. Yeah, so you're right. I didn't know that was going to be a thing for me, but it did become very big to me. I didn't want to be a giggle girl. I wanted to be a girl who could hold her own, do her own show, and show that we can talk. And we don't all have high-pitched voices, actually, and we do have something to say that's important, as opposed to just being your reactionary toy. I think I hope, and there was that changing scene too, I think. I think females were starting to get more solo roles, but also in the co-hosting kind of role. Sometimes the female was paneling, or she really was the person bringing the content to talk about, and being okay to run with something and own it and front it as well. So yeah, that really became quite a drive for me. And I think maybe that's why I kept such a solitary and I stayed a solo announcer. But I guess those were the roles as well. It was very, you're not going to have a tandem on a day show or anything like that. But
did you ever get an offer to join a group? Like, because that's always a classic thing. They try to find the combo. They try to make the puzzle pieces work to put together like a trio or a duo. Was that ever put forward to you? And in the other respect, another kind of add-on question to what I was asking before, do you feel like there's been a massive shift in kind of, women broadcasters, female broadcasters, especially in radio? Do you feel like there is less of the giggling girl now? Like compared to maybe what you would have seen in maybe like the late 90s, early 2000s when you would have been like growing up and seeing this kind of like scenario?
Some of the nationwide female announcers really led that way, didn't they? Like Polly was really outspoken and led the way, and JJ Feeney really led the way in that too. And I think that was happening more in the regional radio stations as well, that ownership was happening. And there has been a real change. I don't really think anyone looks at it now so much like that. There's still... Sometimes you still get some critique from some people who've been in radio a long time where they're like, oh, your laugh there was a bit like that. And you're like, well, actually, his was too. There's still sometimes a focus on picking out the female's voice or the female's reaction to something, which it's for you to stand up to say, all right then. But also, it's all right to laugh too. But I think that scope has changed a lot. I think there still needs to be a bit of change in who is critiquing and who is, in the content directory coaching of announcers. I think there still needs to be more females doing that. It's really cool to see that Sharon Casey is now behind the scenes looking after some of our younger female talent, and I think that could happen more. I probably feel like I would actually quite like that kind of role too, or as a mentor. I haven't quite figured that out for myself, but if anyone asked, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. And I think that's because you can see it from their viewpoint and some of the styles of critique. In respects to my job, I've never been really asked to be part of a show. I don't know what that says about me. Part of a team for sure. Obviously, the overall regional fill-in person didn't work for me. JT got that role, but I did get offered the night show host role on Classic Hits. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is it? Oh my God, I don't even know what that is, but that sounds cool and gritty and a little bit like, whoa, nighttime announcing, back to kind of some of my roots of Wellington, eh? And and on a nationwide show. At the same time, More FM Northland had been offering me a contract, and it just couldn't live up to what the nationwide one was going to do. And fortunately, I have a man who was like, we're done here. Let's move to the place we said we'd never move to, and let's have a go at you being a nationwide announcer. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did. I was like,
but I love that.
And it was one of those ones
that
you have to offer your contract. Yeah. You have to offer your contract on the table, right? You've got an offer here with the existing company, and so they've got a right of reply. Their right of reply couldn't live up to this one. I was like, it's time to make a change. Let's just do this. And so, it was left actually really good in the end. That it was a good chance for me to move on and do something else. And so we moved to Auckland. We hid our cat in her cat cage inside a carry bag, and because we lived in and out of a hotel for like a month before we could find somewhere to live. And so we just would sneak her in and out and do the whole, like, please don't clean our room. And then I would trace down to TRN, and I would learn how to be a night announcer and be part of this team with these. Murray Lindsay was in the building, and Andrew and Jackie were on the Auckland Breakfast Show. And the ZM was right there, and ZB was there, and oh man, it was so cool. But a really great group of people who really believed and trusted that I could take this show somewhere else. They had 200 followers on their Facebook page, and so it became my goal to up that as much as we could. And I think in the first couple of months we got up to 1,000, and then so again, that was the starting point of change for radio too, where social media was starting to really become part of that play. Things happening on Facebook and things going up on website. Because I worked at night, I really wanted to learn how to do the behind the scenes of the website, so you could get articles up, or if anything around the country happened that needed to be reported on, I could figure that out and put that on the website and broadcast it. And so again, another big,
because you've had these constant micro goals. It's almost like you always set these new points or waypoints that you're like, I need, in order for me to feel satisfied, I need to reach this next point. Do you still feel like that's kind of even something that you kind of live by today, is that you always feel like there needs to be something new for you to learn, or there is another milestone that you need to reach in order for you to feel like, I'm moving forward, there's still momentum?
Yeah. I've probably in the last couple of years halted that a little bit. I think there was kind of a change in the industry, in my view on the industry and my role. I also became a parent. My daughter's 6 now, but I became an instant parent. And so lots of things then affect your ability to constantly be this. But I think I've come through some stuff and out the other side where now I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the thing I need to do now to make myself feel like I'm achieving. So I've given myself some downtime. And I really, really needed to. So through all of that career, you just go, busy, achieve. You'll never get nominated for a radio award because you're up against the drive shows and all the rest of it. And then boom, in she goes. Finalist for Best Music Show against the Rock Drive Show and The Breeze, some crazy stuff. I think when someone says you can't do it, and it's really something I want to do, I will try my absolute darndest to show you. And then I'll just quietly take that little I don't have to be showy about it. I'll just be like, yeah, so there you go. Did that. It kind of gives me a little inner sense of thrill, I suppose, because you should never say never, something can't actually happen. Who says that? Who puts the lid on something? I think that's the thing, perhaps, how I focus my life. There shouldn't be a lid. Just try everything, see what happens.
Yeah, well, you've even dipped into things like you've been a music reviewer, and that's obviously as a show from your work and your kind of early years where you went to go see bands. You've done podcasting yourself. I think.
Shall I tell you how I got into being a music reviewer?
Please do.
Okay, so that's with ZB, with Jack Tame on his Saturday show. And so Andrew Dickens used to be the music reviewer. And then he was going away overseas and he said, could you fill in for me and be the music reviewer? About 6 years ago. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you do? And he's like, you just get a new album and then you go on and chat to Jack and you just tell him a bit about it. And I was like, okay. So I had this whole I can't do that, even though I've been doing music my whole life. So I wrote that, I did this, I don't even know what my first album was, but I wrote this 50-page essay. And then I was like, just throw it away now. Like, you've written the words down. It's just radio, Estelle. Just talk to Jack. And you do most of it on your phone now, right? You have like an app that you just dial into the studio. Sometimes we just use WhatsApp now. And then, they're just like, music reviewer, Estelle. You're like, oh, that was really good.
I've only listened to this once and I barely listened to it, but I'll give you a review.
I was so nervous. And so I just filled in for a couple of weeks. And then he came back, and then I think he must have gone into another show and he couldn't do it anymore. And so then they're like, can you just do it? And I was like, okay. And so I thought I was just filling in. Like and then every week the producer would be like, hey, so what album do you want to do this week? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing it again this week. And then eventually someone says to me, oh, you get paid for this, eh? I'm like, no.
What?
No one had ever said, Andrew had never said
so
you get paid for filling
free
in.
For all those
I've been doing
years.
it for... Oh, no, for like 6 months or so.
Okay.
Because I also didn't know it was my job. I thought I was just filling in until I got someone. But it turns out I was the someone, and then I learned you got paid, and then it just carried on, and I've just been doing it all this time. And I just think it's one of those funny things where you fall into, right, in radio, and I love it. I absolutely love it because I actually over the last couple of years had a break away from doing full-time radio. But it's been that little thing that I still do, and I love talking to Jack, and I love throwing him real random things. And you know what happens after a couple of years? You just get your confidence about it. And now if an album doesn't drop till Friday, I can listen to it real fast and pick out some stuff. It's not really about being a huge, serious critiquer or anything. It's about picking out some stuff you love, why it might be a good different listen, showcase some different things to the News Talk ZB audience, sometimes say real random stuff that, I don't know, they just came to my mind, so I said it. It's just been one of those really weird things.
Because you must pull out some pretty strange things for the listeners, and one of the ones I had to laugh at when I saw a review that you did was for King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which I think for anyone who's a News Talk ZB listener would be like, is that even a band name, or is that just a completely false name of band that she's just making up on the fly so
I know.
she can get another paycheck?
Jack had a real hard time even saying the band name. It was so great. I think sometimes it's nice to add a curveball and...
Massively.
Do you know what happens with that too? Because I've had some people now who are like, oh, you do the reviews, or even some people I know, and they're like, hey, I just heard you on ZB. I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. Anyway, it makes them then go and listen to a back catalogue, right, of somebody and go, oh, because those guys are funny because they've done some real hard rock and metal. And then this last album is like this really flowery, beautiful thing. So I love sometimes bringing an artist that actually, if you do go into their back catalogue, you might be kind of surprised because they're not what you think they might be. And I think that's the cool thing about music again, and the evolution of some bands. And I guess it's tapping into that real original stuff, eh? Like, I love music.
Yeah. And
so it's a chance. Because sometimes when you are on shows on radio, you get a little bit of the music chat, but sometimes it's not that. It's the promos and what's happening in the day, what's happening locally. You get a little glimpse sometimes of really showing that music passion. The night show was a great place for that. I really got to run some legs there and make lots of cool features and do lots of stuff with New Zealand On Air and artists. And so before I knew it, wasn't a goal, Jamie, but yes, oh my gosh, getting to interview all these musicians and people doing their work and learning their passion and what makes them tick and the stories behind those songs. It's pretty cool. Like, it really... Yeah, it's a bit of a buzz.
You can't complain about your job. Exactly. Yeah.
And when your friends are like, why are you talking to that person in the studio? Or like you've gone somewhere to interview someone, they're like, this is crazy. And I'm like, I know. But you lose that a bit too, don't you? You get so used to talking to these famous people that you don't always look at it like that anymore. You want the real story. You want the bit that creates some heart or,
And do you think the night show is always going to be kind of that cool wee corner of radio because you do have the time and the place and the space to be able to like go into a little bit more detail with things? And one other thing I wanted to ask you is I think you need to hit up Jack at some point about whether he's still playing drums, because I actually used to take drum lessons with Jack when I was 8 years old. Yeah,
Did
at
you?
Cashmere High School. Yeah, Cashmere High School.
No
8 years
way.
old. I used to take
That's
drum
awesome.
lessons with him. Yeah.
Okay. I know he plays guitar, but I don't know about the drums. I'm going to...
Yeah, you should hit him up about it. I'd love to see if he's still playing. I don't think he is. He probably isn't, but you know.
How does he fit anything else into his life, right? But I guess
exactly. That was my thought as well. Yeah. And so one of the other things that I wanted to touch on as well, and you mentioned it earlier, is that you became like an instant mum. And that was because of you adopting Ava at 1 week old. And like, for that moment for you, because a lot of people talk about how children change their lives. How was that for you, that receiving that phone call and being like, I'm a mum now. Like, I'm a mum. Like, how was it for you guys?
You're even making my skin tingle now. Like, it's just something you actually just don't know how it's going to be until it happens for you. The story leading into that was that we'd gone through IVF for like 3 years. I was on the day show for the hits then, and I'd have to go and do early morning blood tests, and then you're just jabbing yourself and doing all this stuff. And it wasn't working out for us. We'd gone through lots of ups and downs. I didn't share much of it on air. Not because I didn't want to, but you get to a point where you can't have all these people having hope. It's too much. It's just too much. And I have shared it since. But actually in the journey, I think I just needed to have radio as my happy out, because it's a weird kind of space to be. But that also left us to once again in our lives being those people who are like, well, let's try something else. Try it all. See what happens. And we went through the process of learning what it is to adopt in New Zealand. So in Aotearoa, we are open adoption. So you keep a contact with birth family. You go through this real rapid training of what that kind of means, and then you go through this bit where you basically make a friendship book about your lives, and you have a case manager, and they do medicals and all these interviews with you, and they check out your house, and they just do all these things. And then you make this beautiful book, and you put photos in and your story of your life, and they have it on file. And then when birth family decide they want to adopt out, they get given, like, they sort of say what they're looking for in a parent, and then they get given some books that might be relevant to that. Our book was in the pool for nearly 3 years.
Wow.
and we used to get calls to say, hey, your book is out. Would you take a child with possible fetal alcohol disorder? We don't know yet, but the mum didn't know she was pregnant for a time. You get some stories, right? Or would you take a child who is sometimes it's from something quite bad, and sometimes it's not. And through that journey, we were like, hey, maybe let's just have a 6-month catch-up, because again, you ride this wave of hope and down. And I must admit, through the whole journey, I was like, how does anyone ever gift their baby? How will this ever happen? So after nearly 3 years, we're like, you know what? Maybe we're just the cool aunt and uncle. Let's just be there. We've got these good careers going. We're making some money. We've been to Vegas. Let's do that again. Like, let's do some more travel, and just we've got our dog and our cat, and we're just living this kind of cool life. And when our nieces and nephews come and stay, we spoil them and we go to all the things, and that's a cool place to be, right? So we'd kind of actually relaxed about this ever happening for us. And my sister was over from Canada for summer in January, February of the year we got Ava. And I said, because I knew she'd be the biggest upset, and I was like, we're okay. We're good, man. We are in this good place. The best thing about going through this kind of journey, if you don't look after this relationship you have with your partner, then what the heck is the point? Like, once it starts getting dark and cloudy and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember getting to that point through our IVF journey going, God, we can't even talk to each other right now. We're so dark about what we've gone through, and it's not working out. Why? Science is supposed to work. But you have to come in there and solidify that relationship, because otherwise, what the heck are you bringing a kid into that for if you can't be together, right?
Massively.
Like, save this first. This is the core of what makes all these other things happen, or that you even want it to happen. So we were like, we're good. Look at us. We're here, we're together, we're getting through this together. We'll have our sad days, but we'll be okay. So that's all right. Send her back off to Canada. She's not coping so well with it, but it's going to be okay. And then you just get on with life. And then hadn't heard from our case manager for a few months, and we were like, I think the next meeting we're just going to say, we're going to take our book out.
But
let's
done.
not do it. Yeah. I'm okay with this now. And I sort of had that in the back of our minds. And then one day, Gibby, that's my husband, he was off to do, he had a day back-to-back of these 2 murder mysteries. So he was off somewhere wild with somebody, doing some crazy character stuff. And I'd had this massive bushwalk with my dog and I was feeling a bit jaded. I lit the fire and I was like, I'm just going to have a little nana nap before I head off to the studio. My phone's ringing. I'm like, I don't know that number. Leave it.
Classic.
And it rings again and I'm like, oh God, all right. Hello, Estelle speaking. And it was our case manager. And she's like, hey, are you sitting down? And you know that moment when someone actually says that to you and you're like, I just started to shake. I could feel the shakes coming, like that adrenaline just starting to course through my veins. I was like, no, I don't know if I can now. She's like, hey, you've been chosen. I was like, what? What are you saying? She's like, a family have chosen you. You've got a little girl. I'm like, like I even get teary speaking about it now because it's such.
Oh, Estelle.
I just floored. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, hang on. Let me sit down. Say that again. Say it again. And she's like, okay.
Repeat it slowly.
Yeah, a family have chosen you. It's a little girl. She's healthy. And the birth family want to meet with you tomorrow.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. She's like, are you ready for it? I was like, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, I think I need to talk to Gibby. And she's like, okay, you hang up from me now. You talk to him and then you call me back and we'll lock in a time for tomorrow because they're still at the birth centre, but baby is about to go to a foster family so birth mum looked after Ava for the first 3 days, did all the breastfeeding and all the wonderful stuff, but she wanted her to go into a foster family so that then there was clear territory for us to meet and
the separation
and for the baby. Yeah, that's what she wanted. We're like, okay. I ring Gibby. He's in the car travelling to the next gig. He's got the other actor in the car with him, and I'm on speakerphone. And I'm like, dude, I just have to say something, and I need to say it like this because I'm about to cry again. He's like, what's wrong? He's probably thinking someone's died, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, okay, well, Nick's in the car too. I'm like, I don't care. He's just going to have to hear this. And he's like, okay. Oh my gosh, are you all right? I'm like, we've been chosen. He's like, what? I was like, Gibby, we've been chosen. We have a baby. And then, of course, I just burst into tears, and he's like, I have to pull over. And I was like, yeah. Pull over. He's like, what the heck are you talking about? I was like, oh my gosh, Gibby, I've just been talking to our case manager. We've got a birth family who want to give us their baby and we need to see them tomorrow. He's like, this is not making any sense. I'm about 5 minutes away from home. I'm driving. I'm going to calm it and drive down the driveway. Don't make any phone calls. Stay where you are. And I can hear the other actor mate being like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah. Anyway, so they hang up and I'm just pacing. By this stage, the dog's like, what's going on? And I'm just pacing up and down the deck. And then Gibby comes down the driveway, just cars on, doors open, runs to me, hugs me. And he's like, are we doing this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I think we're doing this. I think we're going to do this. And it's just such an overwhelming reality. Like you feel, I don't even know, out of body experience, eh?
The fact you still have that emotion even now, like me speaking to you, just is very telling of like how much of a big deal this was to you and Gibby.
Huge.
Like 3 years you're waiting, among other things. And like, aside of everything else, would you still say that's always going to be the moment that you can just picture in your mind and be like, this is my key moment in my life. This was the main milestone that you really wanted to get to, was this.
I didn't know that, but through the journey, and I guess meeting the right person and knowing that's your person, you're like, yeah, would be awesome parents. And you go through this thing where you're just like, it's not going to happen. You know, you've got to come to some sort of reality about that for your mental health, your financial well-being, like all the stuff. So then we are like, okay. And so had planned the next day to meet the birth family. So you go to Oranga Tamariki to do that, and they have a case manager and you have a case manager. And we get put into this room and our case manager talks to us and she's like, just be yourselves, just be cool, just ask lots of questions. And so that's their part for the birth family to make sure they've chosen, that they're happy with what the choice they've made. So things could still change at this point, right? So she leaves and we're like, this is the biggest audition of our lives. Yeah. Like if ever there was an audition for a role, getting chosen to be parents is absolutely insane. I don't know what to expect here. What's the birth mother going to be like? Like, what the heck? Sitting in this room, door opens, birth mother comes in, and she is just all across this. She's like, oh my gosh, it is so amazing to see you both. You look just like the pictures in your book. You guys are incredible. You're going to be amazing parents. I can't wait for you to meet your baby.
You just weren't expecting that. You were like expecting some other sort of like scenario to run down. You're like, oh, this is going to be a battle. And it's like you already have been like kind of put at ease, even in that first kind of moment.
So in control and so confident about what it is she wanted to do. You know, like I think part of her background to deciding to gift her baby, and this is the language we use because it was such a positive experience. She wanted to gift us her baby. She made sure she had a healthy pregnancy and birth to make sure she could gift this baby at her best. And just to, she felt too young to take on that responsibility and give that child everything that they wanted, but she knew she was lucky to be able to have children. And to feel like she said, she felt like she wasn't mature enough. You're like, the maturity you're showing me right now, that you can say these things to me, is astounding to me. So you've got more maturity than you think, but also bless you. And then so her mum was there, birth dad was there. We ended up yarning for like 2.5 hours about everything, about our lives. They were very open. We're pretty open people too. We cried, we laughed, and we just sorted out everything around how this was going to look for us and what they really wished for and wanted and what we really wished for and wanted. They had taken photos just after her birth, and so they showed us like day dot of Ava and getting wrapped up and swaddled, and they talked us through her birth. And so, you just have this picture sometimes of though you were there because we just shared that all in detail. They gave us the right to be able to name her, like all these wonderful things. And so at the end of that, it's like, okay, well, now you need to sort out meeting the baby. So we're like, okay. And so they rang the foster mum who randomly, so we were living in Titirangi out west in Auckland, and the foster family were here on the Hibiscus coast.
That's so funny.
Way before we even knew we were going to be moving out here. It's just weird, isn't it? It's so weird. So they're like, okay, in 2 days' time, because we've just got a couple of those first appointments where the baby gets checked over and all this. I want to do all those things first and then come and see her on the Friday. So she'll be a week old. You're like, okay. So they're going to meet with their case manager. We're going to meet with ours and meet the foster family. So, okay. So we drive this drive. And so at this stage, we have told my mum, I think one of Gibby's sisters, and at some point I'm like, when do I tell work? And then I'm like, I don't want to tell them yet because they've got 10 days to change their mind before definitely. The papers are signed off. And I'm like, but at some point, like, I'm going to have a baby, so I can't go to work. So we're like, let's just do this first visit and we'll see how this goes. So we get out to the foster family. They're incredible. Oh my gosh, such loving, amazing human beings. And we walk in and birth mum leads me into the little bassinet where baby is. And then she just looked at me and she's like, well, pick up your baby. I'm like, how is this? How is she leading the way like this? Like it was so cool. And so you're like this teeny tiny thing. Yeah, everyone's watching you as well. You're like, oh. And I don't know. There was just, this baby was so relaxed and calm, and it felt confident in that she knew what was happening. And I guess maybe that says a lot for how the birth mother was through her pregnancy and into the birth. This baby was so settled, and you learn lots of things about that the baby may go through grief and loss and change. I don't remember ever really feeling that with Ava. She just knew that there were lots of people to love her. Yeah, so we had this time. So then Gibby comes in and he's like, I don't know, he hadn't held as many babies as me, I don't think. Clumsy and awkward and big thumbs. Holding a baby while everyone's watching you, eh? You're like, oh my gosh, if I do this wrong, they're going to take this baby off me.
Yeah, like a sack of potatoes being like, yeah, how do I do this?
Yeah. And then we just sat and we talked and we hugged and we gave her a bottle and we did all these wonderful things. And then they were like, yep, this is it. You guys are her parents. This is amazing. So you still have to go through all those days. So from then, we spent another week until the paperwork could be signed off, where every day we would drive out and spend the time with her. I would go into the studio and do a show. And by that stage, the only person who knew were the big bosses, because I was like, in a week, I'm going to need to be on parental leave.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to tell everyone else until the paperwork was signed. And so I was going in, and I reckon I must have had this weird vibe about me, because I started cleaning out my desk. I started doing all this stuff and then going on air and being like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's great. And people are like, what are you cleaning your desk like that for? Well, I just really need to do some spring cleaning. And I was just turning into an absolute bit of chaos. My last show on air was actually filling in on the Drive show. And so I was there with Stacey Morrison and I was anchoring, and Aneka Moore was just about to start the following week. So she was in the studio, and it's like the news is playing at 3:00. We're about to go live. And by this stage, I'm just so highly strung. Stacey knew. I told her. She'd been along this journey with me for a long time. And I just needed, someone in the studio to know what was going on. And I just suddenly burst into tears and I remember putting my head on the desk. And all I remember hearing Stacey being like, just breathe. It's going to be okay. Just breathe. Mic on. Hey, it's the Drive show. It's the Drive show. Still filling in for Flinny Stace is here, and it was Mike Peru at that stage. And then Aneka being like, what the heck is on with this chick? So you get your first voice breakdown, you come off, and I'm like, oh. Stacey's like, we've just got to get through the show, babe. We've just got to get through the show. And then Aneka's like, what the heck is going on? And so I had to tell her straight away. And so we're just having this massive wahine blub in the studio, like, if ever there was some wairoa spinning around in a space, that studio must have been it. And then I finished.
But was it almost like the perfect moment in a way, Estelle, that you managed to share that kind of moment with the three of you being able to share that moment and kind of like humility of being like, yeah, we're all having this moment together and having that mutual understanding of being like, yeah, this is a big deal.
These three Māori wahine. Aneka had just had Marigold. She was a couple of months old. And so she was probably, really feeling some vibes then too herself. And this backbone of strong wahine and Stacey Morrison to be there. Like, pretty cool thing to be, right? Like it was an energy that I needed and a little marking point, in life to go, this is how it was meant to be. We were meant to be here, have this, and then drive on and pick up your baby. And then I came back the next Tuesday. Yeah, came back the next Tuesday because by then you're like, you got to tell some people. Like over the weekend, we did one of those social media posts because you're like, how do you tell everybody? By that stage, we'd been on the phone and told all our immediate family. And during the week while we were back and forward visiting Ava, we just left our key out, and so people would walk our dog and we would come home and someone would have made us like a dinner, and there were nappies and there were baby clothes. Someone else had set a bassinet up in our bedroom. Like we just called on the village, and the village came, and we had everything we needed. We were like, all we need to do right now is visit this child and then get her home. And everyone else was like, fine, we'll do everything else. And that's what happened. We just turned up. Things were done. Isn't it amazing? Like such a magical moment. And I think that that's the story for other people too. Like this moment where when you were frantic and we came to your house and we walked Hogan and we left you some nappies and some kai and then we brought her home on the stormy Friday, the papers, because the birth dad was in Hawke's Bay. So he had to drive after work up to Auckland to sign the final papers. They were signed at 5:15 on a Friday night of a long weekend, and a storm was rolling in, and the foster family were like, look, if it doesn't get signed in time, we've set up the spare room. You guys just stay here because she's your baby. Like it would be weird not to have her now. And we get the call, paperwork signed, You're free to take your baby. So happy tears, crying, laughter.
The breath of relief and everything else. Like, oh my God, yeah, Estelle, that's wild.
Yeah. Put her in the car, and they're like, whoa. Drove it like, this is the slowest I've ever known Gibby to ever drive. So slow. And then about 10 minutes down the road, we're like, do you know what? The only thing we don't have is any bottles to feed her. That's probably quite important. So we drove back to the foster family. They're like, is everything okay? No refunds? We're like, yeah. No, we don't have any bottles. Could we take some of yours? And they're like, oh, yes. And so got that and then drove home, and we had a baby. Instant parents.
And is it weird to look back now? Because obviously you're transitioning from this like high-flying career that you're having in radio, and you've still managed to maintain it, obviously, even after you've had a baby. But for you, did that change a lot in terms of, because you said that you probably didn't have that same sort of, how would you say, ferocity of you like aggressively chasing the stuff. You're now like, no, my kind of thing now is being a mum, still enjoying having a career, but not having to feel like there's something I need to prove all the time because you've achieved this.
It wasn't
as well.
instant for me. It wasn't instant for me. I wanted to prove I could have it all. I wanted to prove that I could become an instant mum, and that I could be on air and I could host all the things. That didn't happen for me straight away. I only had 6 weeks off. And I look back at that now and I'm like, you idiot. You absolute idiot. Your whole life had changed. And nothing, my focus was definitely this child and this baby. I was really lucky because Gibby worked from home. So we just tagged it out. So he would do early mornings, get her started for the day, and I'd kind of cruise into it, take over, have her through the day, and then leave a little bit later for the night show. I wouldn't kind of go to all the things, right? Just turn up to do the job. And that was kind of a gentle way back in once I did it, but I still kept running. You know, there's photos of me with Ava strapped on me and I'm delivering a prize to someone's house, or she's in the studio I remember some of the big bosses looking through the big windows and I'm 1 foot rocking the pram, voice on, having a chat, voice off. Cool, she didn't cry through that bit. That's good. I wanted to prove that you can do it all. And I think this is eventually what probably led to me having burnout. That's what happened for me a couple of years ago. I've been doing all the things, and I think as I get a little bit older, you know, like I was dropping her to, my role changed. So I was still doing night show, but just before COVID, they decided to create this 3 p.m. pickup on the hits, and Laura McGoldrick came in to do that. And so I was anchoring, I was paneling for that. We didn't really know what this show was because COVID was just coming in, and we were creating this show during COVID, and we didn't. I don't know if I was supposed to be speaking, and she was. You know, we were sort of figuring this out of what this kind of show looked like. And then that was kind of fun and interesting. But at that time I knew I was starting to get a bit tired. Trying to juggle 2 different shows as well as being a parent and all the rest. And then COVID hit and we kind of had to relax into what life was, right? And you could only broadcast by being in separate spaces, and Laura's at home and I'm in the studio, and you have to keep happy while everyone else is like, what's happening in life? It was quite taxing in that, keeping up your happy and what the heck are we going to talk about and do while everyone else is at the standstill. And there were variations of fun and hardness through that. And then we came out of that and we kept that show going as well as me still doing nights. And so I could take Ava back to caregiving and stuff. But there were some times I'd be driving in the car and I'm like, she's just being at this daycare during the day. She's fine. But now we're in the car in the traffic for like an hour and a half getting home. Am I wasting her life? Being in this car, in this city, doing this job, like, I don't know, I'm starting to, like, I think we'd come out of COVID exhausted, but you still had to keep forward projecting because now the world was changing again and everyone was coming back and doing things and we wanted energy, but your energy had been really taxed during that hard time. And I really started looking at my child and going, is this okay? I mean, I know people do it all the time and that's what it is, but I don't know if I wanted that. And this is probably where a new drive kicked in. I've waited a really long time for this baby and I want to have a cool life with her, but I don't know if this bit is cool. I don't know if this is this is a good bit, Then some changes were coming again, where media was like, let's still have all this output, let's still have all these high ratings, and use one person to do it all. And there's always been that in radio, right? Regional
Sounds
radio.
about right. Yeah, exactly.
So you do all the jobs. And look, like you can tell from my career, I am happy to know how to do all the jobs. But some of them you just can't keep making it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And we had already gone through some losses and redundancies, and all the big networks were trying to do their best to save people and still have jobs, but they also had to make business calls, right? And I think probably COVID did put that line in the sand of people suddenly realizing every company is a business and there's money to be made, losses, all the rest of it. So what can we do to do that? And so, we were going through another round of redundancies and changes of job, and I was faced with we'd really like you to do nights and news. I'd never been a news person. I have no doubt I probably could do it. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to do the night show and do afternoon, so through drive and then into the other side. I didn't want to do news. It would mean I'd have to change up the childcare we were already doing. And I didn't, my child had already had like about 3 changes by that stage, thanks to COVID and my job and all the rest of it. My husband had started working in film by that stage, so his hours were pretty all over the place and long. So I was faced with like this, or there was no other job for me. They hadn't offered me anything else in that building, and I was feeling a bit done. So my other option was redundancy. And I decided to take that. I decided to have a break, and I would take redundancy. It was a shock. I think it was a shock to the bosses. They were like, "Oh, we really thought you'd take this role." And I said, "Well, I think maybe in the last couple of years we haven't really discussed what my goals should be and what I want to do. And this isn't it. You haven't ever created this job role thinking about talking to me about it." And some stuff got lost along the way in COVID, didn't it? And perhaps in all industries, where some of those conversations were getting made behind closed doors. They probably always have, to be honest. But I thought I'd been in the career long enough for us to be a bit more open. What are your goals? I'd been saying what my goals were. Hey, maybe I'd like to have a go at being on drive. Maybe I'd like to have a go at doing a tandem show. We'd already been doing that a bit on the 3 p.m. pickup. Maybe this is a really good place for me to learn to be a strong anchor. Maybe this is another way we could do this. But that wasn't in their plan. So I decided it wasn't in mine either. So I took redundancy. I think even when you choose to take redundancy, you don't realise it still takes a bit of a hit. And I'd been with that whānau for 13 years. And big life stuff had happened. And it was a real moment to suddenly go, your job isn't all of who you are. You stepped into it and it wasn't all who you were. You had a lot of history first. You can go back to that place. It just very quickly does become all your life, because that's the kind of energy you give to those jobs. It's how you keep those jobs, because you do commit a lot to them. I quickly got picked up for another role with an opposing network, and it moved us out here to the Hibiscus Coast, and it was a local breakfast show. I had 3 months garden leave because you've got to have some downtime.
Of course.
There was a crossover of audience up here who had come with me from Northland to network shows.
You're joking.
And then came back because they were in this local area. They were like, "Yeah, you're back. We want you." And everything about it, I was like, this is amazing, isn't it? I've just been offered my own local breakfast show. Good money. What a cool place where my grandparents holidayed. I've got this history and this vibe. What a cool place to start. And everything felt hard. I felt like on paper and career goals, I had everything you could ever dream of. The trust of a company to come back into their forum and to run with your own show, do what you like, go for it, be part of this local community. I guess I struggled with the fact that we had just landed. So it reminded me very much of going to Northland. Didn't really know it. Don't know it yet. I don't know the space yet. I'm still learning mum life, She's 3 at this stage and about to go into kindy. It's another goal. And that was cool, though. We moved out here and we'd been in line for kindy for a year back in the city. And then out here, they're like, yeah, she can start tomorrow. Just don't pack peanut butter.
Sweet. Yeah.
I'm like, what? So that was all easy. And she was happy. Like, we moved out here to the beach and just it really helped her. And suddenly everything's 5 minutes away. We're not in the car for hours. We're doing stuff. We're living life. But everything about the show, I mean, I'm not necessarily a morning person. Maybe that's just not my time of day. Maybe it's not my time of day. I think I did do a good job. I think that, but in here, and my whole body was starting to react. I was not coping. There'd been so many changes. I've been pushing over the last 3 years of becoming a parent and still being a career girl. All these changes, moving house again. I finally found my point. I found my point where it was feeling hard. I felt like I had nothing to talk about anymore. And my body started physically telling me. Every time I'd go to push the button, I just had this. I'd never had anxiety before. I'd never felt that before, but I was feeling like I was having a heart attack or just like this nervousness through my fingers. And, there's always that moment where you're like, just settle. You've got this new studio. You're back to some clunky old gear. It's just that. You're just a bit rattled. But I couldn't find it. I couldn't find my rhythm. And when you're a seasoned broadcaster, it does not sound like that going out on air because you're going to make it sound good. You can cry and be awful and that mic goes on and you go back into broadcast mode.
But what bothered you more about it? The fact that you knew you hit your limit or the fact that you felt like you shouldn't have been hitting that limit? What was it about it?
It's probably that. I was like, I can't be a failure. I can't fail at something. I can't not be able to do this. This is my blood. I've been doing this for such a long time. Why is this hard? Why do I feel so stressed? I started reflecting in Ava. She was, even though everything should be happy for her and great, like she was getting kind of quite tight and wound up and we were sick. We just couldn't shake bugs. We were just constantly ill. And I'd approach that studio and just be so, I've never felt that even when I've been new and all the rest of it. It was a nervous energy that you loved and it felt good and it flew you through. But this was something different. Very, very onto it.
But what was that point? So you have that breaking point. You realise that this is coming to a stage where you're almost dreading going into the studio.
Someone else realises for me. A female boss Anna. She could sense it. She knew. She said, something's not right about you. Can we go for a walk on the beach after your show today? I'm like, I think that's a good idea. We got a coffee and we went for a walk and I just finally let it out. I'm such a person who'll just be like, you got this, girl. Toughen up, push it down. And I'll share it with my people or whatever. And by that stage, I've been sharing it with my mum and Gibby and saying, there's something not right about me. I just there's something not right. And I just had it out with Anna. And she's like, yeah. She said, you know what? Just not the right timing. I think you need to go away for a bit. I think you need to have a break. But you're going to need to talk to Bosto first. I'm like, yeah, I am. And so she put the wheels in motion. She's like, I think you need to step away. And that was quite hard to be like, but I knew that I needed to step away. He came up and he had this amazing chat with me in the studio for a couple of hours. I mean, he's going to do everything he can to be like, please don't go. You've only been here 6 months. Please don't go. Your ratings were great, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I know this, but if it's making me feel like I'm going to have a heart attack about it, like that's not a good broadcaster. That's not a great place to be. And he's like, do you just need a month off? It's like, no, I don't think I do. He's like, well, what about leave of absence and we say you come back in 6 months? Anna very fortunately said, I don't think you need a date above your head. I think that'll only lead you to not working this shit out with this foreboding thing coming, this time frame, right? That's just going to set. You're at a place, I think, that's a bit different than that. Bosto very smartly said, I think you should do some of that. I'm not going to say you can go until you do some counselling. I want you to do a counselling session, and I want to see what you get from that and what they say. Can you believe I've done my whole career without having any counselling except for once through IVF?
Which is crazy when you're literally in the industry where you have to put on a brave face and smile all the time, but like this is the first time that you're having to accurately portray your emotions, your feelings about a situation. And also
I thought it was enough.
A friend. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was enough to talk to friends and family, but actually it's a burden for them too. You know, like I had actually, for 3 years in part of the journey of getting Ava, my brother had a huge breakdown, he won't mind me saying, and we took him in and he lived with us and we got him through that. How I could not see that coming in myself, I don't know. But I think because I'm always the survivor and I'm the one who's like upping everybody else, you know. So I was like, okay, I'll do some counselling. So I rang and it was amazing. Like the behind the scenes things that MediaWorks had, and actually most companies do now, don't they? This great team who are like, yep, we're going to get you someone. You're going to talk on video call. I think you need to connect with somebody like that. And it was amazing. I don't know, Jamie, where have I been? I'm like now the biggest advocate for counselling. Even if it's a couple of sessions, just go and talk to somebody else. One who can listen in a different way. One who maybe can give you some tools. But God, it was just exactly what I needed. So kudos to those guys for pointing me in the right direction. That counsellor very quickly said, you are on burnout point and you can't push any further than this. And I was like, thank you. I did need someone else to say it, but I feel like I suck at everything. I'm not being a good mum. I'm not being a great radio announcer. I'm not being good for this company. I'm not being a good wife. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but in my inner self, I just felt like I was sucking at everything. And I don't like that. I like to be a high achiever. I like to feel good about what I'm doing. So it was kind of good to get that somebody else. And so I went back to Bostow with that. And I mean, it probably wasn't the words he wanted to hear.
Obviously not.
I was like,
no content director ever wants to hear that. But the thing is, I think it's great that he did push you in that direction to go and seek help and actually have a better understanding of how you came to that position. And I think that's also what you talked about before as well, how having a date hanging over your head would have just made it another goal. It would have made it that another driving thing of like, oh, if I'm not good by 6 months, then I've failed again. So not having that perceived time made it even better. And even now, Estelle, are you glad that you did kind of take stock and have someone push you into that?
I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to that team. One, and Anna recognising that something wasn't ticking in me right. One, that I'd already been kind of there. I'd been starting to voice it. It's not something any of my people are used to hearing from me. And it was challenging for them. It was challenging for my husband to know that I was broken because I'm the fixer. I'm the energy that keeps going. It was a challenge. So professionally, it was a challenge too. What am I? What am I without this radio? And suddenly you're like, the biggest bit I'm going to have to work through here is my own ego in regards to who I am. And I am so grateful that I have had this. And that is hindsight, isn't it? Like, I stepped away and I just had to go dark. Like, someone else take my child to kindy. I'm going to lie in bed and cry. And I'm going to have these counselling sessions. And I'm going to stare weirdly into space. And I felt like I wasn't being kind to myself. I didn't care about myself. But I clearly did because I wanted to change something. And they also let my counselling sessions go beyond what they were supposed to be, even though I now had stepped away. Their care of duty, they carried on those sessions for me for a little bit longer. They were really great. And then I started reading again. And I started walking to the beach. And, you know, I'm tangata whenua, man. We've got to put our feet in the sand and in the water. And suddenly I was in this beautiful place to do that. So, wrong job, right place. And things started falling into place. But it took a long time. I reckon, you know, like I remember Boss Anna being like, keep your little swipey tag. I reckon you'll be back. And I'm like, nah, I won't be, mate. I won't. I'm not coming back to this. And I'm glad that I really knew for at least a year I wasn't going to be. I kept that music review a bit going, and I was messy, and I didn't do much, and I eventually just became this kindy mum, and eventually came the school mum, and I became part of the community. I made a group of friends out here, and I started doing things locally and not going, I have to be back in the city and I have to have this drive. And my head got clearer, my body got lighter. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad. I could talk about things better. I reconnected with some of my people that perhaps was just a bit more like, hey, yeah, I'm doing good, okay, bye. There was more depth to it. My friends were like, holy shit, we've got to step up again. She's broken. We need to tell her it's okay. You're more than just this person. And then I made a goal of getting back into theatre. And I did a local show out here at Centre Stage in Orewa. And it was a female version of The Odd Couple. And I was surrounded again by these varying experience and ages of women. And I just let go. And I had fun on stage, and I reminded myself I love that. And I swam, and I just, with no commitment, I'm also a wedding and funeral celebrant. So I had time to do that without freaking out that I still had to plan for a show or do anything else. And so I relaxed into the gig life and the freelance. And it meant that life becomes challenging financially. But I'd been there before as an actor, and I could do it again. And you find a way. Yeah. And you know what? Money just isn't everything. And I guess I'm just not that kind of focused person. Yes, it makes some things be able to happen for you, and it's good, and you've got to keep a roof over your head, and I have a child to look after, and this is where I've started to relax into being the parent. And that's cool, man. Like, it's really great, I think, sometimes for women to hear, you don't have to do all the things. We're very good at broadcasting and sharing. We can do all the things, and we can, but we don't have to. It's okay to not be okay. We hear that now. But it's also okay not to do all the things. I've had such joy in walking my child to school. Isn't it so simple that we just sometimes overlook that? Such joy in just doing that, and her little stories and the things we pick up along the way, and me going, oh, that's disgusting, mate. But I've refound me, and the business of radio had caught up with me. Those things where someone else is deciding your career, and you've got to sign paperwork, and there's stress, and there's targets to meet, and all that stuff became what it was about. I'd been around some highly strung people, some real attention-seeking people, and I think I naturally sometimes step back a little bit when I'm around that. But also to check the ego. This is not all of who I am, and it's not all of who I want to be. So let's refine that girl. Let's refine that fun and see what then happens. And wouldn't you know it, I have that swipe tag, and it works, and it lets me into MediaWorks HQ, and I'm doing some casual announcing, and I'm marrying people, and whatever else comes along. There's a few TV ads I'm in at the moment. Things are happening because I've just relaxed. I've relaxed about stuff, and money comes when money's needed.
And it's such a journey. It's such a journey though, from going through this like heavy hitting, like fast paced life to slowing things down, and now kind of re-entering back into the industry. Is it something that you would have seen yourself doing like a year, 2 years ago, or was it like you couldn't see the light of the tunnel and now you can, and you're like, I can come back into this and not feel that radio is my full identity. I have my identity back from having that time to heal.
That first year, I think I would look at some of the announcements and changes that come out. I'm like, I feel a bit jealous. I feel a bit jelly. And then I'm like, that's their journey, man. That's not mine. Let it go. I had to unfollow some things for a while. I actually kept quite quiet from a lot of my radio friends because I felt quite whakama, man. I felt real shame, that I couldn't be this person. And, I just needed to not be around those people. I found it toxic. Not because they were being toxic. It just made me stressed again, made me feel I didn't want that energy. I didn't want that fast-paced, quick turnaround energy anymore. I didn't. It wasn't good for me. And I realized I was judging my achievements, or what I saw as not achievements, failures, by what these other people were having happen, or, oh God, if I'd stayed, maybe that could have been my job. And then I was like, gee, that's just such a mindset I've been trained to do for 15 years. Let it go, man. Let it go. It's not your journey right now. You are not well enough. You're not good. You're not that I'm not good enough. You're not in the headspace for that. Don't take it on. So I think that first year was pretty dark and moody, and I was like, yeah, I'm never ever going back to this. But then something happens, and you start going, oh man, I'm proud of that person. Look what they've achieved. Oh, far out. JJ Feeney's just had a meltdown. I feel you. Text. I've never really chatted to her much, but man, did I feel that. Jacinda Ardern stepping away. I felt that to my core. I'm like, girl, yes, it's a lot. It's okay to be mum, and then refind that next bit. Like, just be who you are. So it probably took like a year, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting kind of itchy about the radio thing again. Do I need to work behind the scenes? And I did apply for a couple of behind the scenes jobs with very honest people in the industry. Thank you, Bosto. Do you really want to do this? No. Then why are you applying for it? I can't give you the money you want, and then you'll just come in and you'll be looking around your shoulder for the next gig. I'm like, oh, right. He's like, it's better just to wait. I'm like, okay, all right. Got nothing for you at the moment. Okay. Then I knew they were changing to Zeta, a new whole technical program for running the studios. And I was like, you know what? I need to learn that. Because once I learn that, you're hearing a pattern here now, I'm hearing a pattern too. Once I learn that, I'm valuable and I know what I'm doing again. Knock, knock, knock. Please can I come in and learn Zeta? Because also now I know everybody, right? And the person who's training everyone to learn Zeta is someone I worked with at the Hits. And I'm like, dude, can I just come watch over your shoulder on a Saturday? Yep, okay. And then I'm like, hey, Bosto, I watched how Zeta works, but I want to know how to do it. He's like, oh, yeah. Okay, well, do you want to come in? Oh, actually, do you want to just be around for some casual announcing? I could sign you up on a casual contract if you want. But you'll have to learn Zeta. And I'm like, yeah, sweet as. So I come in and I do some learning sessions, and I'm in the studio and everyone's like, yay, you're back. And I'm like, I'm not.
I'm just learning Zeta.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. I know all these people. This is my place. But also, holy cool, how good to get out and drive home to the beach. And my girl's there and she's smiling and we're hugging and we're like, yeah. She's like, Mom, did you do some radio? I'm like, yeah, I did. It's real hard. It was hard again. Learning new technical stuff again, eh? And your brain's like, oh, hang on, what a minute. Yeah, and then the whole, we don't have anything for you a week later. Hey, I'll put you on these 3 shows. So I had a time frame. Suddenly, nearly 2 years later. But I felt good about it. I was like, I can do this. I'm going to do this. And I was nervous again. And I'd got the basics of how to use the suite. And I went in. It was a Sunday shift. I went in like 50 million hours early to seg and line it all up. And my hands were shaking. And I went on air and then got off and went, ee! Oh my gosh, that was kind of cool. But also, what the heck? And just spent a whole show chasing my tail. You know, when you haven't done it for a while, it just feels like everything's like this forward momentum that I haven't been doing. Been doing beach cool life, man. And then suddenly those songs are going to keep playing and that air break's going to keep playing. So hurry the heck up. And I got through it and I was shaky and like, oh God, what happened? And Bosto rings and he's like, so how was that? I was like, well, I didn't have any mental breakdowns. Didn't have any panic attacks. I think I'm okay. Like the nerves are just the adrenaline of like doing this and functioning again, as opposed to like
back in the game. Yeah,
broke it. You know what I mean? Like I was okay with it, and it felt good then to walk away. And so I've progressively just been doing that, and then every long weekend, and those were good because when you get to do 3 shows in a row, suddenly the gear isn't driving me; I'm driving the gear, and suddenly all that natural chat and laughter and knowledge is coming out, but it feels new again in a way that some of the new artists I'm getting on board with, and just the technology, I think that being new and fresh, and having this group of people who are really supportive, and also walking into a space where you realise those people have studied you when they're at radio school. Hey, like when you have to listen back to an announcer and do critique inside your class, and you're like, oh, these are all these people who are here now. But also me being like, dudes, I'm just a real person, man. Like, that's nice that you're kind of buzzing, that you're saying hi to Estelle and hugging me, and you've told me you really love what I do. That's real cool, and it's really nice to feel that. And I've come back in going, you know what? I'm going to own that I am good at this. It's okay to say it. I am. But I don't know all the stuff, and sometimes I mess up, and that's cool too. I'm just a human trying to do her best at something that actually, God, the passion just is there. It just doesn't die. And that's been a really cool buzz, but also I'm not committed to any show right now, you know what I mean? So there's a sense of freedom around it too.
If you like the podcast, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform and let me know your thoughts on the show. Don't forget, you can reach out to me via Instagram at beyondbroadcastpod or via email at beyondbroadcastpod@gmail.com. Until next time, take it easy.